Good evening, everyone. It looks like folks are just getting in the room now, so we're going to give it another minute for folks to get in, and then we'll get started. We are waiting on one more team member to join us. He appears to be having some technology issues, so we may start maybe about 2 or 3 minutes late. Honaro, I texted him. If you wouldn't mind, would you try giving him a call, please? Again, folks, sorry for the delay. We had a team member who did join, our CEQA consultant, and as soon as he got on, he unfortunately fell right off the Zoom. So we're trying to get a hold of him to see if he can sign back in. Just bear with us for a moment, please. And Renato, once you're done, if you could turn your camera back on, this way I know you're there and we can go ahead and at least open and start, and we can go from there.
Okay, guys.
All right, great, thank you. And thanks for being patient, everyone. Just as a opening to this, thank you for attending this evening's webinar. This is really part one of a two-part meeting that we're doing. There's a statutory requirement to do a CEQA meeting, a California Environmental Quality Act, in regards to the environmental impact report. The statute only requires for one meeting. BUSD has chosen to do this in 2 meetings, primarily to give the public the opportunity to really understand the breadth of the project, to make any comments, but also to be able to take that away, review that, really give it some thought, and then come back at the second meeting, which will be held on September 28th. And at that point, weigh in on the environmental impact report, or on what your concerns are as the public around the EIR specific to this project. That being said, we have with us tonight Steve Nowak from Placeworks. He is our CEQA consultant. And we also have Renato Morales from Watry Design, and he is our bridging architect. Joining me is Prachia Min, who is our lead program manager from Van Pelt Construction Services. I'm going to turn it over to Renato here in a moment to talk about the designs, and he'll show you what the project currently looks like. And if for some reason you're unable to attend the September 28th meeting, but you have some concerns that you would like to express this evening, we'll absolutely capture those concerns, and those will be weighed in with Steve Nowak's report regarding the environmental impact report. Lastly, one of the things that I would like to mention to the group is, through a community member, it was only mentioned to us today that while we've always known of the city of Berkeley's intent to have a bike boulevard along Milvia, which they've currently installed and they're still doing a little bit of work on, we learned of a bike boulevard on Bancroft. We've had communications specifically around this project, around different aspects of this project, as well as around CEQA with the city, and Bancroft has never come up. So what you'll see in the conceptual massing studies this evening from Watry Design is you'll actually see entrances and exits on both Bancroft and Durant. The district has committed to absolutely no traffic ingress or egress from the structure onto Milvia. But again, Bancroft is something that just came up today to us. We're glad it came up. Obviously, this is something that would have come out during the EIR process, but to know this on the front end, as opposed to once the EIR is complete, it's certainly helpful. It's something that Steve Nowak and his team, as well as Renato Morales and his team, will absolutely study, and we'll work with the city to understand the impact and also understand what we can do to mitigate any risk and lower the threat levels. BUSD has the same commitment as the city of Berkeley to ensure our pedestrian and our bicyclist safety. So with that, Renato, I'm going to pass it over to you. I believe you're going to do a presentation on what the project looks like, the massing, if you will, and what it entails. We can then go to Steve Nowak and absolutely open it up for question at that point in time.
Sure. I also was hoping to just describe a little bit of the bridging document process so that people understand sort of what to expect. So
that would be great.
Here. Yeah. Let me share my my screen. You should be seeing a PowerPoint presentation. All right. So again, thanks, Steve. Thank you, everybody who's joining. We're excited to be on this project, and like John mentions, this is just an initial presentation. It's sort of to get an idea of what the potential are, what the opportunities are for this project. What's going on here? Hold on. Of course, now I have I'm having a little technical issue myself. Hold on.
Oftentimes when you're sharing screen, if you use your cursor to tap onto the presentation, you can then use your keyboard to advance.
There you go. Okay. So anyway, John already made the introductions. Basically, we're working with Berkeley Unified School District and Van Pelt and Steve to get on this project. I wanted to kind of just describe the bridging documents a little bit so that you understand. Basically, our process is going to be to set up the criteria for an actual design build team to come in and complete the design and then construct the structure. So we're taking the design to a certain extent, kind of setting the what's important to the district, to the stakeholders, to everybody involved, so that the design team has a clear understanding of what's expected of them. They'll know what's expected in their bid, and then we'll have that ability to control that process a little bit. John is with the Berkeley Unified School District. Van Pelt has several people working on it: Chris, Prashi, and Jennifer. And then Steve Nowak is working on the EIR. Watry Design, I'm going to be the architect of record. We also have Anita Gupta. She's going to be the structural engineer of record. And then we're working with Devin Conway of Verdi Design, who we just completed a project at San Jose State University. And his expertise is not just civil engineering, but also sports fields and landscaping. So we thought he'd be a great team member to have on this project because the tennis courts are so critical to his job. There's just some examples of some of the work we've done. And then this is San Jose State University that just completed, just opened up not too long ago. We've done, a multitude of parking garages. A lot of them have tennis court and field components. This is Verdi, again, San Jose State University. They're, experts at tennis, and we're going to use all their expertise to, how to get the right project. We'll also have other people, MEP consultants and cost estimators, as well as other people at Watry Design to help with the project. So the bridging document process is really, like I said, is to set the criteria, to set what's important for the project, and working with not just the Unified School District, but also the staff, the teachers, whoever this project's important to, the community. Get criteria, set the framework for what's going to be important, And then, establish what the criteria is going to be for the design build team, including aesthetics, maintenance, anticipated how the facility is going to be used. We understand that it's a high school project, but the intent is to see how it works so that the community can also use it and get some benefit out of it too. Collaboration is critical to us. We want to hear from you. We want to understand what's important to people, and try to balance it out. There's always a lot of different views on something, and not everything is achievable, but we try to do what we can in terms of how to make it the best possible project for as many people as possible. So collaboration again, trying to communicate with people, trying to communicate with stakeholders, and just determine what the critical portions are. The site is located at a real critical junction in Berkeley. You have Shattuck, and you have the high school and Martin Luther King, the plaza. You have Cal not too far away. All these things, how do they impact the project? What's critical to make sure that we don't do something that really affects the surrounding site and the surrounding context. So again, meetings, communication, that's critical to us. Get input and decide, what the criteria or what the critical factors are. I'm sure most of you are real familiar with the site, but just to like John was saying, Bancroft and Durant, the feeder streets basically. We understand Milvia is critical. We're gonna protect it as much as possible. We all wish that construction would just appear one day, but we all know that construction takes time and takes effort. So how do we set it so that it minimizes that input? Okay, now I'm clicking and it's not turning, John. Yeah. Oh, there you go. All right, here we go. So a few photos of the site. Basically, the site is surrounded not only by the high school, but apartments. This is just to set sort of the parameters. Most of the apartments are 4 levels above parking. So, try to get the context of the height of the buildings around the site. Bancroft, looking west, you see the high school here. And again, apartments, obviously, people that live there are going to be real interested in what's going on. They're going to want to know what we're doing and why we're doing it. There are a few smaller homes in the area, but for the most part, the apartment buildings are of a taller nature. The project itself is going to be 3 levels of parking, approximately 240 parking stalls. The top deck is going to be where the tennis courts are going to be, and we're working with Devin to determine whether we can get 5 tennis courts up there. Obviously, the high school is going to have input in terms of what kind of competitions they're going to want to hold there, and so the courts are going to be, real regulation size, and so we'll work with them to see how many we can fit. We know we can fit 4 for sure. Whether we can fit the 5th one, that's going to be the challenge. We're proposing to light the courts for evening and nighttime use. That's always controversial in the sense that how late do you let people play, with noise and light and stuff. But we also understand that there's a benefit to that. Not everybody can come out during the day and play, and so especially for the community, they can use it at night. That'd be nice. The court level will also have some limited bleachers for viewing and restrooms. And then the facility will be a construction, a concrete construction. So we, like John said, we right now we're showing 1 entry. We've been discussing the second exit, an entry. There's always benefit to having two points of entry. We'll determine that as the design develops a little bit more, exactly where to locate that. We don't want it too close to Milvia, but obviously the pedestrian traffic and stuff, we'll have to work through that and see But this is the ground level, and we can easily pop an exit and an entry off to Bancroft. Again, nothing on Milvia. We understand how important that is to maintain the traffic off of that street as much as possible. Making sure that the students and staff and everybody crossing the street minimize the traffic on that street. The second and third level are basically just parking, but obviously it's important. They're very similar. We're a ramp in the back to connect all the levels for the parking. And then up on the top deck, like I said, right now we're showing 4 full-size tennis courts with fencing around, the restrooms on the corner here with a small equipment storage area just for the different tools and equipment that the tennis court the tennis people are going to need. All the cores, the stairs and the elevators are at the corners on Milvia because we think that's really where they want to be in terms of access to the high school. And again, this is just a massing study. We're trying to show what it could be. We're showing screening because we want to hide the cars as much as possible, but it's real critical from a ventilation standpoint that the screening is perforated and it's all it allows the ventilation to happen, because otherwise we've all been in garages that are very enclosed and you don't get that same feeling of being able to see sunlight, being able to hear the exterior. And so we're also using some passive security features like glass back elevators and screening on the stairs. We want to make sure that this is secure. The ground level will have security screening, but again, we want to also be able to see through it from a security standpoint, because the more you enclose the garage, the less safe it feels on the inside. These are just some images, aerial views, looking at it of what it potentially could be. Again, these are see-through cores, so that staff feel safe when they're coming down the stairwell, to make sure that they feel that they're comfortable. Again, the ground level, this is hard to see on this image, but the ground level, the intent is to put screening that keeps people out and makes them go through the secure points, but it also allows you to see in. And then, the courts themselves, what are they going to be? So we're proposing, a fence. We're still determining the height of that. There's nothing worse than hitting a ball over the fence and having to go chase it down the street. So, it's a fine line of how do you control that? But we also understand that the higher the fence, the more that it impacts the site. So we'll work with Verity to determine those details for the courts. As far as schedule, this is the first stab at a schedule, but we're proposing about 3 months to complete the bridging documents, to go through the process of meeting with the right stakeholders and getting input, and then applying that to the design, and then approvals through the board, through DSA, through whoever has to approve the project, a month, and then put it out for bid and award for the design build contractors. And as you might imagine, there's already a lot of interest in this project with the contractor community. They've already heard about it and they're starting to get interested. So hopefully that'll continue. And then we think that it's about a 60-month construction period. Hopefully that's long, but again, it's a tight site. It's traffic around it, so we want to make sure that it's not overly optimistic and then find out that it's actually going to take longer. The criteria, again, aesthetics is important. Security, budget is real critical. What happens during construction, how to control noise and construction traffic, making sure that the contractors understand that that it's very important for the community to minimize noise and traffic. And that's pretty much it for right now. I don't know if you want to take questions now, John, or wait till later.
Go ahead and stop sharing. I'm going to pass it over to Steve.
Okay.
Thank you for the presentation. And what I would say is, I don't know that your schedule, and I didn't catch this sooner, but we'll have to look at your schedule because I don't believe what we have in there accounted for is
Okay.
actually the approval process for
Okay.
the state architect's office.
All
So
right.
we'll definitely review that and go through that. I do see we have one hand raised so far, but with that, I think before we start taking questions, Steve, if I'm not mistaken, you had a slide or two really regarding the environmental piece of this, which is really what the purpose of this evening's meeting is. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so why don't we allow Steve from Placeworks to do a quick his quick few slides, and then we'll jump in. I see that Liza has her hand up first, and we'll take questions following that.
Okay. Let me find the. Okay, can everybody see the slide?
No, you haven't. You're gonna have to share screen on the
Okay,
bottom.
one more. I thought I did one more time. Okay. All right. Can you see it?
No.
It shows I'm sharing, so just help me through this. What do
No
I
worries.
need to do?
Worst case, if you want to send that to me real quick, I can go ahead and share it on my end if you'd like.
Sure. Okay. I'll do that. Sorry about that. Here we go, John.
No problem. Sorry, folks.
Okay, just set.
Yep, got it. Hang on one moment. I don't think this is the right one. What's the one entitled that you sent me?
California Environmental Quality Act community meeting.
No, that's, hang on one second.
Okay. I sent you
Got
another email, so
Yep,
there
I
should
got
be
it.
another one coming.
Yep.
Okay,
I
great.
got it. All right, great. Okay, you should all be able to.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. So I'm just going to briefly just talk about the CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, briefly talk about the EIR, talk about what we are going to study in the document itself, and then the overall process for the EIR, including where public input is invited as part of the process. So basically, and perhaps many of you are aware of this, CEQA is the state's primary environmental law, and it really requires that public agencies disclose environmental impacts that have a physical effect on the environment before projects can get approved. The document also requires that we identify ways to avoid or reduce potential impacts through mitigation measures or through alternatives where mitigation measures might not fully reduce an impact. Next slide. The EIR itself, it's an informational document. It does not deny or approve a project. It's really to disclose information about the effects of a proposed project, what the effects could be on the environment. It identifies mitigation measures to avoid or reduce impacts and describes feasible alternatives when necessary. And it must be certified by the lead agency, which is the district in this case. And certification means that the board is saying that they stand behind the document, the findings of the document, and all the information within. So it's really certification that the EIR accurately identifies potential impacts and provides measures sufficient to avoid those impacts where feasible. Next slide. And in terms of the scope of analysis, we're going to look at most of the topics that are required by CEQA. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but you can see it is a comprehensive list, including impacts to the surrounding community or surrounding areas, looking at everything from aesthetics to noise, and all of and transportation, really looking at circulation around the project site itself and safety for the ingress and egress. So we'll be preparing a comprehensive document that really analyzes these topics in detail in the EIR. And then finally, if you go to the next slide, this is really a preview of what we'll be doing. We are planning on publishing the notice of preparation next week. And with that publication then begins the 30-day scoping period. And during that time, including tonight, we will take comments tonight, but then we will hold a scoping meeting on September 28th, and we will solicit additional comments. And the purpose of the scoping meeting is really to, again, just discuss the project and then ensure that the public has an opportunity to provide input on the content of the EIR itself. We take those comments into consideration as we prepare the draft EIR. Once we prepare the draft, then we will release that for a 45-day comment review period, and we'll hold a public hearing on that document to accept public comments on the results and the findings of the EIR. And we'll prepare a final EIR where we provide responses to all those comments. Where necessary, we'll modify the document itself. If new information is presented, or we didn't get something completely right, we will make those modifications. Then we will prepare the final EIR, prepare a mitigation and monitoring plan, and then that will be packaged for a hearing before the district board. And at that hearing, they would then certify the EIR. So there are a couple of more opportunities for public comment in addition to the community meeting tonight, including the 30-day scoping meeting, the hearing on the draft EIR, and then the final hearing on certification of the document. With that, we can open it up for questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Steve. So it looks like our first one was Liza, followed by Mati, then Ms. Rios, and that's it right now.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi. Thank you for holding this. I do just want to start, John, by just addressing your comment about learning only today or yesterday about the entrances on Bancroft. I've been telling you this since April 19th, that there would be no way to have entrances on Millview or Bancroft. So just a little frustrating to hear that from you. I told you at the CBOC meeting at Parker Street and a number of times since then. So a little frustrating to hear that, but besides the point.
I appreciate that, and I will be very honest with you. I only ever heard Millview. It's very possible you said that, and if I did that, it wasn't.
That's okay. It's just, it feels a little surprising to hear you say that.
No, because we have no intent of entering or exiting onto a bike boulevard, and I just want to be really clear with that. Okay, that's what we've always said. So if that was anything that you had communicated,
it was one of the things about when you were planning with the operations, because I knew it would be very difficult for you to do that without coming in and out, and that was one of the reasons I was so opposed to that. So I just. Sorry, I'm trying to be brief here because I actually am a commissioner for the Transportation and Infrastructure Commission for the City of Berkeley, and that meeting starts at 7, so I have to do this very quickly. Number one, I just want to really encourage everyone who's on the call now, and I have no idea how many people are on, that when the notice gets published, that if you do have concerns, that you can write a letter. In the notice, there will be information about how you can send in your written comments. I really recommend that you send in your written comments, because with CEQA, the folks who are on the call now do need to respond in writing to every single one of your comments. So, and John, I would like to know how you will be noticing the community. And when I say community, I mean the BUSD and all the taxpayers in Berkeley, because I think that this is a project of immense concern to many people across Berkeley. Everybody who I talk to, when they find out about this project, are pretty livid about it, to be honest. And the Berkeley side comments and the Twitter comments and the Facebook comments reflect that. And I really want to make sure it's very clear like this should go to Berkeley side. There should be a clear notice to the community writ large who is footing the bill potentially for this. So I'd like to know a little bit about your communications plan, and then I have 2 more comments or questions.
Sure. Very briefly, what I can tell you is that the required notice is within so many feet of the project. The letter that Steve is finalizing right now, the notice of preparation, that actually is going out to a much larger community around that project. It's not being mailed to the entire city of Berkeley. We are working with our communications office to do things beyond the website, to actually work with Berkeley side, but also to work through the different media platforms that they currently advertise beyond our website, which is social media, et cetera. We have advertised and spoken about this at many board meetings. We'll make notice of it at the upcoming board meeting. There'll be notice in the community letters that our public information officer sends out. And there is notice, just to refer back to, because I've heard that a lot about, the surprise of so many people. And I know we did make mention of it in the bond language, but the bond language is a few years old and we recognize that. So we are working to get it out through every platform that we can.
Okay, thanks. I would appreciate that. And yeah, the bond language is quite old in the sense of the climate has changed significantly, and both the both climate change and the climate in Berkeley in terms of what people are willing to support. My second to last point is actually about bike parking. I don't see in any of the renderings pictures about that. Director Vasudev was very clear about this. I will say I have spoken to many Berkeley High students who have told me there is terribly inadequate bike parking on campus. And currently I understand that the idea was maybe to provide bike parking for staff only in this, which would be great because it would alleviate some of the bike parking issues for the students. I don't see anything in here for that. And it ties into my final comment,
And if
which I,
can I answer that
yeah,
one for you
please,
real
go
quick?
ahead.
So as I talked about at the board meeting, there is an adequate amount of bike parking being planned into there for staff bike parking, which will free up some of the bike parking on campus. We're also in the process of adding additional bike parking on the campus. But what you have in front of you, although they do look like renderings, they're really just massing studies. So they weren't incorporated into the original massing study. And we did not ask Watchery Design to go back and redo these, only because these are not designed to show the intricate details, but rather just of what it could potentially look like.
Yeah,
But
that's
as
fine.
I have gone on record with at the board meeting and explained to Director Vasudev, there will be bike parking incorporated into it.
Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate that. And I'll just say ahead of time, because this happened to me in the building I work in, where they told me that there would be, quote, adequate bike parking. It's not just the number of spaces, it's also the types of spaces. Many Berkeley High staff are parents who are having large cargo bikes. Many folks are using e-bikes now, and they can't be lifted. Just to think about this, they can't be lifted. And so like vertical bike parking is really not adequate bike parking. So that's just a comment. My final comment, and apologies for rushing through this, but again, I have this other meeting to attend, is just with regard to the environmental impact. No one at Berkeley High has done a survey of where staff live, where they're commuting from. I know personally, because they're friends of mine, many Berkeley High staff who live within a mile of Berkeley High and drive to campus because there's free and ample parking. And as long as there continues to be free and ample parking, and as long as you are providing additional free and ample parking, people will drive whether they ought to be in terms of climate and responsibility or not. And I recognize that some people have physical limitations that make it so that they have to drive. I recognize that there are issues around childcare that make it so that people have to drive. But Berkeley Unified School District has never made any effort in any school sites to, for example, offer transit vouchers and ask people to pay for parking, rewarding good behavior and asking people to pay into the system. And this is known as transit demand management programs. This is not a part of what Berkeley High does. It is part of our Berkeley Unified. It is part of what every single business in Berkeley is required to do. It is part of what UC Berkeley does. It is standard and it is best practices for dealing with parking, and building more parking is not the answer. So I would say that before I would ask that as part of this review process, that there be an investigation into how you can implement a transit demand management program to avoid the need to build additional parking. Building housing in this location, housing with tennis courts on top, would also be an excellent environmental alternative to building parking. And providing appropriate, vouchers for e-bikes. It goes from, a bike radius of 5 miles being comfortable to a radius of 10, 12 miles when people have e-bikes. And so I just want to really encourage Berkeley to get to the point where everyone else in this city already is with transit demand management, and really catch up to the times and stop providing free parking as the answer to your transportation issues. That's not the answer. So that's my comment. I will be providing more comments in writing once the notice is posted. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So next up is Mati Tellenbaum, followed by Ms. Rios. I think we may need to just be very cognizant of the clock. I don't want to limit anybody's comments, but at the same time, I ask that everyone be respectful that we do have a number of speakers and a hard stop at 7:30. So with that, Mati, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. John, could you just tell us how many people are attending this meeting right now?
Right now, there is, it looks like we just dropped to 9 attendees,
Okay.
and we have a total of 7. I'm sorry, excuse me. It looks like 6 more people waiting to speak.
Okay. I just wanted to understand it's a community meeting, but we're sitting here, each one in our cars and in front of our computers, and we don't see the community. And it's good to understand who's listening and who's interested. Thanks for allowing me to make my comments. And thank you to the design team. I basically have no comments to the design team because, as you know, John, I believe this project ought not to be. I'll tap to what Liza finished her comments by saying, by questioning needs assessment and research. A brief disclaimer, as despite multiple requests, we received very little information about whether or what type of needs assessment were performed. So my comments are based on assumptions and not data, but those assumptions are because it appears that there is no data. And the reason why this project ought not to be is because it is too expensive. It is dated in terms of the concept and the, as I said, the environment that it's going to be built into. And there are more cost-effective solutions to the issues that will leave the necessary funds to actually support teachers and students in their classroom and their workplace. I want to try to debunk a couple of the concepts that are being repeated about this project, because I think each one of them needs to be questioned. The first one is the concept of marquee project in Measure G. It's not surprising that it will be a marquee project because it's pretty easy to understand how it would get, quote unquote, strong community support. If you propose the project, you'll get a lot of teachers and staff at BHS supporting it, being a organized and clear communicating group that will create a strong support, quote unquote. And it's obvious. If somebody's offering you free parking, you'll probably say, yes, I'll take it. But that doesn't mean that it's the right project. I personally see it a little bit embarrassing that one of the marquee projects is parking. There are no classrooms as marquee projects, but we do have a huge parking structure as a marquee project when we still have problems in actually educational buildings and buildings where people work and study and teach. Another concept that I would like to debunk is the concept of that is being mentioned about the tennis community. I don't think BUSD's job is to meet the needs of the community at large for recreation facilities. That's the city's responsibility. So that concept of the tennis community and trying to accommodate the community, the cost of that, the complexity that comes with that will be immense. All these issues of access control and security at that tennis court in order to allow the community to participate but not be making it a security issue. Again, this is not something that BUSD needs to address. And then there's the back to the original point of like, what are the needs? The needs are parking, question mark, how much? How was the number established? What are the options and alternatives that were researched? These are issues that have been discussed and raised in front of you and the board repeatedly, but no real answers were given. And similarly about tennis. Tennis is an individual sport. You're building a forecourt that will accommodate a couple of handful of players, while the district have 5 beautiful courts at King. It's not convenient, but they're very lightly used by King. So the needs for this building, this complex building that's being designed and presented here, are questionable. The needs for the funds in other places are undoubted. So I think this project needs to be reconsidered from its origins back to the concepts and needs that drive it. Again, this is above and beyond what the design team is here for, because they were asked to design and address a specific project. But I think the community is being very clear that this project is not what is needed. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mattia. I appreciate that. And if I could ask, once you're done speaking, if you can lower the hand, please, so we can definitely keep track of the folks as they're coming in order to speak. Ms. Rios, followed by Charles Siegel.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
So first, I wanted to ask Mr. Morales if the future renderings will include the protected bike lanes that are on Milvia, as well as including the protected bike lanes that will be on Bancroft. And then I have a prepared statement, but I know that this was put together very quickly. It was just, I wanted to advocate for that because one of our board members asked for that at a meeting I was at recently. So my comment is, I'd like to ask CEQA to provide the Berkeley community with more information about the mitigation measures that could reduce or eliminate the environmental impacts of building a brand new parking structure on Milvia. The newer Center Street garage nearby could provide safe, covered parking immediately to Berkeley teachers and could also allow tennis to restore their original practice site and become a low or no impact solution and trigger a negative declaration. Why can't we start with the resources already in place to reduce environmental and safety impacts in the most transit-rich area of our community? Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Charles Siegel.
Okay, I'm muted now. You can hear me, I presume.
Yes.
First of all, thank you for listening about the Bancroft bicycle track. I contacted you earlier today, and I'm glad I got the idea got through. And I think it's essential that if the garage is built, there not be any entrance at all on Bancroft or on Milvia. And it seems like it should be technically feasible to build it with the entrance and exit on Durant and no exit and entrance on Milvia. Secondly, I would say that the schedule for the EIR seems very, very rushed today. And it looks like between the scoping and the preparation of the draft EIR, there is very little time or no time to take account of suggestions that are made during the scoping. Now, I'm going to make a suggestion during the scoping. I'm going to make a suggestion right now that I think would require a lot more study. It's similar to what Liza said and what other people have said, that there should be a complete study of transportation demand management and the effective workforce housing on reducing demand for commute trips, and on the effect of pricing and other TDM measures. And the best way to study that, I would say, is to have a trip reduction alternative in the EIR. And that alternative could thoroughly study how many employees live close enough to the school to shift to other alternative transportation forms, how many employees would move to workforce housing if the workforce housing was built. But looking at the schedule that you showed earlier, I just don't see any time for you to do that analysis. So let me ask Steve, could you show the schedule again, and could you tell me, is there time for really time to add anything new in there, or is it just just making a show of taking community input and then ignoring the community input?
Well, this really isn't a schedule. This is just a process diagram.
Okay, well, you have the length of the scoping periods, 30 days, 45 days.
Correct.
In the draft. So the question is how much
Correct.
time there would be. Question is how much time there would be between the end of the scoping period and the release of the draft EIR, and hopefully that would be an adequate amount of time to modify the EIR to take account of what's said in the scoping period.
Correct, and that would be about a 12-week period, so about a 3-month period minimum to prepare the draft EIR.
Oh, okay, that sounds very.
So that's plenty of time.
That sounds reasonable. Thank you for telling me that. So that's about it.
Sure.
And I think there should be a complete analysis of the possibilities of trip reduction. And I think the best way to do that is through the EIR. And we could see whether the walk-in garage is actually necessary, or whether it's possible to do it in a way that's greatly superior in environmental terms by doing it through trip reduction. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have, I'm going to try not to butcher it, but I believe it's Raina Cho, followed by Ross Parker.
Thank you. It's Rana Cho.
Every time. I'm so sorry, Rana.
All right. Yeah, thank you for having this community engagement meeting, which we requested in April. Same meeting that I was at with Liza Letzger. I would like to reiterate that I was at the same meeting as her, and I appreciate her pointing out that she did explain that there was a Bancroft Way bike lane as well, and there were several other people there at the meeting. So I just want to reiterate that that information was presented then, and I was witness to that.
Well, I appreciate you absolutely reiterating that. And as I said earlier, if I missed it, I absolutely apologize. There's no harm or foul. We haven't done any designs, but again, I do appreciate that. So thank you.
Well, I would like to, I mean, it's clear that there is a lack of communication with the city. I mean, these plans are very obvious and clear. And so I'd like to see more communication with Vision, I think it's like 2050, that's the city of Berkeley mandate to green the city. And this project clearly does not align with those mandates, or is not even in communication with them. I'd also like to recommend that you improve and increase your outreach to community. The fact that there are only 9 people on this, where there has been a very active engagement on other areas such as Twitter and social media, shows that there was a lack of communication. I myself will make sure that all the Berkeley neighborhood councils will know about the forthcoming meetings, because they also have strong opinions on this, as this does reflect how bond funds get used. And for me personally, being a PTA president at Emerson Elementary School, one of the oldest elementary schools in our district, I see that there isn't a clear direction and strategy for this site. Fact being that an idea was introduced to add plant ops to this and then was rescinded. So for me, that shows me that there isn't clear strategy. The fact that that was even raised in the first place, but then had to be turned down. And that the school board needs more oversight on this. And so just want to let you know that for forthcoming school board elections and also the present school board, we're demanding more oversight and transparency in terms of how the bond measure G funds are being used. We find that there's a lack of prioritization. Again, there are outdated HVAC systems and plumbing at our school, and I know at least 2 other schools, and we're not slated for an update until 2028, by which time my child will be in high school. So I feel that these funds could be better used for more urgent and pressing areas for our most youngest and vulnerable students in our district. Thank you.
So thank you. And I would actually encourage you, if you'd like to reach out, I can send you the documents, but your Emerson is actually scheduled significantly sooner than that. Ross Parker, followed by Jackie Irby, I believe.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, John. Hi, everybody. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for hosting this. I've never been on one of these, and I wasn't going to speak today, but it was just really interesting hearing what people had to say, so I thought I'd just chime in. I acknowledge it's unfortunate there's so few people present. I do think there's a lot of people really interested in the project, and I think probably the next meeting there'll be more. I think I might as well just get it out there. Like, I'm the athletic director at Berkeley High. I was the tennis coach for 4 years. I certainly, in fact, spoke pretty passionately in front of the board at least once in my career about how we really need tennis courts at Berkeley High School. So I'm, excited about the possibility of not having our kids walk long distances or our budgets being stripped away by rental fees at Cal or things like that. I think it's good for the kids. I think having the PE department would be really excited by this. They had a long history of positive PE classes with tennis. I'm obviously not speaking for all teachers. I just think one thing that's interesting, I've been at Berkeley High for 17 years, and I'm just going to describe a really common day as a parent of 3 BUSD kids who frankly just has to drive. So there's not ample parking, not even close. And so it's just a common day. I know a lot of teachers, this will resonate with them, is to, crazy morning, you get out of the house as fast as you can with your kids, which any parents on the call right now know how hard that is. You rush and you drop off your kids, you rush to Berkeley High because unlike, a lot of other jobs, you are beholden to a bell schedule, and you go into the little parking lot that used to be the tennis courts, which you can still see all the lines bleeding through of the tennis courts that were temporarily paved over when the B building burned down. You can't find a space. So then you search around for 2-hour parking or a meter. You find something, you run to class, you get there late, which is really embarrassing because you're trying to, promote good habits with the kids and be a role model. Whenever you have a prep period or lunch, you run back to your car and you have over a $50 ticket from the city of Berkeley. So your day is pretty much horrible at this point. So you either stay there and refeed the meter or just hope you don't get another one, or you move somewhere else because there's still not a spot in the, I'll just call them the tennis courts because that's what they are to me. There's still no spots in there. And I just think, I hear a lot of the earlier callers saying like, I've talked to teachers and they don't want this. And I'm sure those teachers exist because I think that's what I love teaching at Berkeley High School. People are willing to engage critically on these really complex issues and listen to each other. But I do think it's not just, oh, you're building a parking lot with free parking. Of course, they're going to say yes to that. It's that this is the only comprehensive high school in the city. There's very few high schools in this state that even come close to the historical relevance of Berkeley High School. And you have teachers and classified staff, safety officers and custodians who are circling the neighborhood, trying to find a space. I know custodians who have to drive in from Fairfield. So any transportation voucher you give them, they're going to drive because they're not going to spend hours switching trains and buses and things like that. And then they're going to get there and there's no spaces. And so that's just a reality. And so I just wanted to kind of bring that perspective in. I'm not even going to bring in the sports perspective because I think I'm obviously interested in anything that helps Berkeley High students and athletes. And I understand the environmental impact as well, but it is just a really difficult reality for the average Berkeley High staffer every single day. And that's the end of my call. So again, thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. Jackie Urbe.
Hi, my name is Jackie Irby. I appreciate this meeting and having the opportunity to speak. I'm actually going to echo several of the previous comments. First of all, I want to speak to transportation demand management. I find it very disappointing that the Berkeley Unified School District does not have a transportation demand management program. I know that is not directly related to this project, but this project is partially happening due to a lack of a transportation demand management program. And so I would like to see BUSD implement that maybe in parallel with this project. As I think a couple of the previous commenters stated, a TDM program is not a huge ask, certainly of such a large employer. Every large employer in the Bay Area is required to have them. I worked at Kaiser for many years. They definitely had one. The city has them. UC Berkeley has them, and many smaller employers do as well. And this does create incentives for people to not drive to work or to carpool to work, actually. That can be part of the program. So I would like to see the district move forward with that. Next, I would like to speak specifically to CEQA considerations, because I understand that was the focus of this meeting. Unfortunately, I had to miss the first half an hour of it due to a conflict. But just from a CEQA standpoint, I do work in real estate development. I've had to do environmental impact reports or work with CEQA consultants on projects of my own. And I do agree with one of the previous commenters that if the goal of this project is to provide tennis courts, which I think is a worthy goal, and I do think that the Berkeley High School students should have tennis courts, it is substantially faster to just put tennis courts back on the existing surface lot, because it is unlikely that you would need to do any sort of environmental impact report on such a project. So from a CEQA, just from the standpoint of expediting getting tennis courts, not building the parking garage, it's going to get you there faster. Also, if there's no stopping the parking garage, it is a very expensive project, 250 parking spots, I believe, for $27 million. It's always very expensive to put in parking. I know that I've heard previously, I haven't been able to attend many of these meetings, that people have suggested that the school district either purchase or lease parking from the other underutilized garages in the downtown Berkeley area. There are several, and it's very disappointing that the district hasn't been able to find a way to make that work. I understand there's some capital versus operational expense issues, but it would be substantially less expensive and this money could be funneled somewhere else. And then, oh, sorry, I meant to not bounce around, but I'm going back to CEQA considerations. If the parking garage is going to be built anyway, from a transportation safety and an evaluation of the transportation for the project, I just want to make sure that if there's going to be any entrances, they should be on Durant, ideally with a left turn only, so that cars aren't routed back onto Milvia, and that there be some sort of portion of the transportation study that looks at the impact to cyclists and pedestrian safety as part of that transportation study, or maybe short evaluation. And I think everybody else hit the other points that I think are focused on, that I think are important, but primarily, I think from a cost standpoint, this could be done much more efficiently by utilizing other space in the downtown area. And we could get tennis courts to the Berkeley High students much faster as well. So thanks for the time and the consideration.
Thank you very much. And Mati, your hand is up, but I'm not sure if it's still raised from before. Let's go ahead and, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to speak again. Just you know, a comment. I mean, if it was not understood previously from my comments, and especially today in the light of Roger Federer's announcement of his retirement, I love tennis. I think Berkeley High should have a tennis facility. I think Berkeley High teachers should not have to circle around in order to look for parking and feed meters and get tickets. But all this needs to be done in a responsible, data-driven way and financially responsible. So parking cannot be offered at any cost, at the cost of $200,000 to $300,000 a spot. Same with tennis courts. These tennis courts would be the most expensive exuberant in the city because they're built on this very expensive structure with all these demands on them. So these two things can be accommodated, tennis and parking, with multiple options at a fraction of the budget, whether with the parking on the site, stacked, or renting from the city and putting the tennis courts again. The issue here is not the theoretical or abstract need for these two functions, is how much and at what cost and what impact. So I think that's the issue here. And again, I don't know if, I really don't know if this is the right topic to be discussed at the CEQA process, because the reason for these comments comes from before even the conception of the project. But thanks again for listening.
Thank you very much. And you definitely hammered on the right point there in the end. We look forward to seeing everybody back on the 28th. But what I mean by the right point is, you know, these concerns have absolutely been heard by facilities and by the board. At this point, the board has given direction to continue to move the project forward. And with that, what we really are concerned to hear with, and the purpose of these meetings is, obviously we want to hear all of the concerns, but we absolutely want to hear any environmental impact concerns that the community may have. But I do greatly appreciate everybody's input tonight. I know I have had the opportunity to hear from most of you before, but this is it's likely a first for both Steve and Hanato, so it's definitely helpful. And thank you. With that, Hanato or Steve, do you have anything to add before we close the meeting?
No, not really.
I'll just note.
Oops, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
No, it's okay. I'll just note that I look forward to getting the notice of preparation out, which if people are commenting that this meeting is small, I think that publishing that NOP, even posting it at the site itself, will will provide an opportunity for more people to participate. And I certainly appreciate the comments tonight, and especially on potential project alternatives. That was very helpful.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I do, I'm not looking at the participant list anymore, but for those who are still there, I do encourage you, talk to your site councils and so on and so forth, but also your neighbors, and encourage them to be a part of this process. So thank you. Hanato?
No, I think, I mean, it's all good comments, and that's what we want to hear, you know, what are the concerns? So we'll take them to advisement.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining, and thank you to everyone. It looks like a couple of attendees might still be here, but thank you very much for coming out and talking tonight. We absolutely appreciate the comments, and we'll look forward to seeing you back on the 28th for those of you who can attend again. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, guys.